Hello YouTube! Welcome to the War Zone. I'm Scruffy and this is Scruffy Tales. And in this video we will be taking a look at what might be the Russian objectives. First, I want to highlight something I found while reading an article provided by the Institute for the Study of War, dropped on the 18th of June. Which states that the founder of the Kremlin-linked Rybar Telegram channel, Mikhail Svinchuk, gave a public interview where he criticized the state of Russia's war effort in Ukraine and also acknowledged that Western sanctions are negatively affecting Russia's industry and economy. So he's outright going against the Russian narrative that everything's fine and Russia is doing all right, the war effort is going according to plan, and there's nothing wrong with the Russian economy and Russian industry. And this guy, he is a big deal, he is wealthy, he is connected, and he has an issue with how things are going in Russia. So yeah, obviously, well, we in the West, we already know this, but I'm curious what all the pro-Russian trolls and bots and what have you, what they might, how they might respond to this. A very well-connected, wealthy Russian takes issue with how things are going inside of Russia. Interesting, right? I'll try and remember to provide the link to the article down below. So, also provided by ISW and other sources online, is the rumor of a new Russian offensive, talking about 10,000 troops and 450 pieces of military equipment, such as tanks, artillery, transports, and what have you. And they are focused outside of Svatove, and apparently the goal is to push west towards the town of Borova. And people might be wondering, what the hell can they do with 10,000 troops? Because they attacked up here with 30,000 troops. Last year they attacked along the entire front up here with 90,000 troops. They needed 50,000 dead and wounded to take Bakhmut. They needed at least 40,000 to take 40,000 dead and injured, wounded to take Avdiivka. Too many English words. God damn it. And, oh, I've forgotten the source, but I read somewhere that this push through Ochotyrtyn and northwest here, that this push currently involves something like 80,000 troops. Pinch of salt, or, a fistful of salt on that one, but, they have a lot of troops down here. So, with these numbers in mind, and what Russia has managed to gain from them, what could 10,000 troops accomplish up here, pushing from Svatove towards Borova? Is it even possible? Well, take a look here. Here you have Svatove, here you have Borova, here you have Kupiansk. You can see the concentration of Ukrainians. You can see the focus of Ukrainians down around Terny. But here, right here in the middle, there aren't that many Ukrainians around, so it kind of makes sense to try and push through, right? Because what will happen? It will force Ukraine to allocate manpower to seal this gap. I mean, take a look what happened here up north, where Russia attacked out of Belgorod towards Lipsy and Vovchansk. Look at all these Ukrainian units that were amassed to stop this assault, an assault that has been pretty much been conducted on foot from the Russians. They aren't using all that many armored vehicles. They are mainly moving on foot, and they have, attracted the attention of all these Ukrainian forces. So something similar will probably happen down here if Russia begins to make a push with these 10,000 troops. And that leads us on to the main objective, what the Russians are well and truly after. They're not trying to gain ground in the north. They're trying to gain ground in the south. Or I shouldn't say the south, I should say further south, because here we have Chasiv Yar, and we have Ocherityne, and further down here we have, down here somewhere, we have Avdiivka. And this is where Russia wants to gain ground. They are steadily pushing this way, northwest out of Ocherityne towards this highway here, and the crossroads here, the intersection up here. And Russia is currently roughly 7.5 kilometers away from achieving this. That's not all that far. In this war, it's massive because you need like a week to gain 200 meters. So 7.5 kilometers, that is a long distance in this war. But, you know, a lucky breakthrough like at Ocherityne, and all of a sudden they may be up here, you know, in a couple of days. So, and this is where Russia is really pushing, slowly but surely, edging their way, inching their way ever closer to this intersection. And what happens if they do that is that they cut off the main supply route leading from Ukrainian positions in the rear where they have all the stockpiles, and this highway leads all the way up to the front line at Chasiv Yar. Now, yes, Ukraine can use other roads to reach the front line. Obviously, they have a bunch of stuff stored and ready to be shipped to the front line in these cities. Goes without saying, but this is how you can move troops back and forth quickly. This is how you can redistribute resources from the rear to the front line as fast as possible. Therefore, Russia wants to push out and cut this, slowing down the logistics required to maintain the front line at Chasiv Yar. And that's not all going on down here. We have also, in the last couple of days, last week, seen Russia make a advance down here, and also up here outside of Toretsk. As you can see here, they've made a rather large push. Like I said, for this war, this is a large push into Ukrainian territory, and they have steadily pushed northward here, about to encircle this area, no doubt, so they can continue moving north next to this highway here. And these are two deliberate attacks towards the Toretsk area, right? So they're trying to push up here to cut here, and all of a sudden supplies not only to Chasiv Yar but also to Toretsk gets cut. And if Russia begins attacking here, resources that could have been used at Chasiv Yar now have to be redirected here. So they are thinning out Ukrainian forces and supplies between Chasiv Yar and Toretsk. So what's going on? Well, this is a given. This is what we well and truly know. I mean, everything points towards Russia trying to reach this intersection over here to cut the supplies leading up to Konstantinivka and Chasiv Yar. So what are Russia trying to do? Well, this push here, this is a hill, a ridge surrounded by lakes and rivers and canals that gives Russia a good position to threaten Toretsk. If they cut the supplies, they have a good chance of actually taking Chasiv Yar. And if they have Chasiv Yar, then they can actually move down towards the ridge line. If they have the ridge and can close the gap here, then they surround Toretsk. And the Ukrainians need to make a decision: hold Toretsk or abandon this entire area and fall back to avoid being encircled and slowly being ground down to dust as Russian artillery just pounds with impunity Ukrainian positions in around Toretsk. So if they take Chasiv Yar, Konstantinivka is not the next objective. The Russians will more than likely try and connect their forces outside of Konstantinivka in order to grab Toretsk and all the towns in the vicinity of Toretsk. And to do so, they first need to cut the supplies leading to Chasiv Yar, then they take Chasiv Yar, and then they can begin to start encircling Toretsk. And I actually made a video about this about a month ago, or more than a month ago, 3rd of May. I posted that video, and in that I kind of go into a bit more detail what I think the Russians are up to, and explaining why Russia wants to attack between Konstantinivka and Toretsk instead of attacking Konstantinivka itself, or attacking Toretsk head on for that matter. So it makes sense, I think, for the Russians to try and encircle and surround Toretsk instead of attacking one of the other cities in the area. So check that out. I'll try and remember to provide the link if you find that interesting. So please check that one out. Right, so I messed up the recording, so I have to do this all over again. Woohoo! Anyway, so what is Russia trying to do? Why is this important? Well, it is because Ukraine has a massive defensive line going all the way from the Russian border all the way down to Horlivka. And it starts out with the Oskil River, a river that Russia cannot get across. They are trying to push out to the river, hence the push from Svatove to Borova, but they are unable to get across it. They've even bombed one of the bridges here going from the west across the river to Borova. So they can't get across it. The river continues this way, but right here is where the river basically connects to a bunch of cities and larger towns. You have Sloviansk, Kramatorsk, and then a full host of smaller towns all the way down to Toretsk. So Russia can't get across this defensive line. They can't get through it. So what they have to do is try and move around it, because that is what you do historically. Got a lot of wind in the background. Sorry if you picked that up. World War II, Germany famously avoided the Maginot Line, the French defenses that I always talk about, and instead went through Belgium to get in behind the French defenses. And they knew that the British and the French had their armies ready to meet the Germans in Belgium. That was the Allied plan. So everyone planned to fight in Belgium. And the Germans, rather, they were more comfortable walking into this trap set by the Allies than punching their way through the Maginot Line, right? If we take a look at the Gulf War, the Americans did basically the same thing. The Iraqis had a big defensive line set up between Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, and the Americans decided to go around the main defenses instead, and they were more comfortable engaging a huge Iraqi armored force at 73 Easting rather than punch their way through the defenses. And then, of course, we have the Winter War, where we famously had the Soviets trying to go through the Mannerheim line, the Finnish defensive line, and, well, we all know how that went. And Russia, or the Soviets, didn't really have all that much success in doing so until they decided to try and move around the defensive line. and that eventually put enough pressure on the Finns to convince the Finns to agree to peace talks. So historically, we have these three famous battlefields where we have a proper defensive line in place, and the only way to overcome the prepared defensive line is to move around it. As we all know, the Ukrainian offensive of 2023 did not try and move around the defensive line. It tried to move straight through, like the Soviets did against the Finns, and it failed. So that is why we have the Russians trying to avoid this massive obstacle and instead connect forces down here to move around it all. And also, they also are trying to get Chasiv Yar to get across a canal, because then they can begin to put pressure on this territory here in a more effective manner. But if they grab Toretsk, connect here, then they're free to operate basically behind the Ukrainian defenses in the east, allowing them to push out to try and grab Donetsk Oblast in its entirety. Now, there may be some of you that are going, but wait, I think that they are actually heading for Pokrovsk, right? Because Pokrovsk is a large city that the Ukrainians are using as a logistical hub, a command outpost, HQ and stuff like that. So from this city, as you can see, highways are leading out to the front line, and from here Ukraine is sending out reinforcements, logistics, and what have you to supply the fighting at the front. And it has been suggested that this is in fact the Russian objective. They are trying to push out this highway, they are trying to push along this highway in order to do a pincer move on Pokrovsk, which would mean they are securing this area, and then they are stuck on Pokrovsk, a city just like Avdiivka, just like Bakhmut. So the question is, what will this gain Russia? Will it gain them all that much in the end? It will cost a lot of manpower to take all of this territory and then assault the city itself, compared to pushing out here and surround Toretsk and force Ukraine to abandon a city and the surrounding towns. So I don't know, this feels like it's more economical, resource effective. You gain a lot of territory without having to attack large cities. Well, they have to attack Chasiv Yar, yes, but that's not a settlement that is as large as Toretsk or Pokrovsk. So you attack smaller cities, smaller towns, and you can gain a lot of territory compared to trying to have another Bakhmut or Avdiivka at Pokrovsk, while you're also assaulted from the north, south, and west. So I don't know. It is certainly a possibility that this is the end goal. I, however, am more leaning towards this option. Let me know in the comments what you think. Go full armchair general, I don't mind. It will be super interesting to read your thoughts and ideas on this situation. And that is all I have for you at the moment. I hope I'll see you in the next one. Wind is blowing through the door right next to me. But yeah, so let me know in the comments. Like I said, what do you think? Am I crazy? What the hell am I talking about? Do you agree? Or, you know, just leave a comment. As always, go på marsch, Ukraine, give them hell.